What's going on, everybody? I wanted to talk a little bit about George Foreman. George Foreman, this guy's life is incredible. George Foreman, he becomes the Olympic gold medalist for the heavyweight in boxing. That was a bigger deal in those days. And he works his way up, gets the opportunity to fight the heavyweight champion Joe Frazier at the time, who had just beaten Muhammad Ali not too long before that. And he destroys Joe Frazier. He then fights Ken Norton, who beat Muhammad Ali, and he destroys Ken Norton. At this point, he's on top of the world. He's feeling himself. You know, a lot of people are starting to think maybe this guy is the greatest heavyweight of all time. He then fights Muhammad Ali in Zaire, Africa. Obviously, the Rumble in the Jungle, legendary fight. Muhammad Ali shocks the world, and he upsets George Foreman, and then George Foreman doesn't have the title. He then fights for a few more years. He fights Ron Lyle, great fight, comes out on top. Then he fights Jimmy Young. He loses a decision to Jimmy Young, and after the fight, he has a spiritual awakening, and he's like, I'm done with boxing. And this is in 1977. He then comes back out of retirement in 1987, reinvents himself, changes his whole entire persona entirely, comes back. He's the big, heavy, fat, jolly, happy-go-lucky guy who's a bozo. He's selling mufflers. He's eating hamburgers in commercials. He's doing all these things, and people don't take him seriously. He keeps, winning these tune-up fights, but it's like, okay, yeah, whatever, George. You're not a serious threat. He gets the shot at the heavyweight title versus Evander Holyfield after Holyfield knocks out Buster Douglas. He loses, but he puts on a better fight than people expected. So people are like, wow, this is impressive. We didn't see this coming. And people, he gains a lot of, people's credibility over right there. He fights Tommy Morrison, loses basically every single round. Okay, but still, he went the distance. He then gets the opportunity to fight Michael Moore. This is in 1994. At this point, George Foreman is 44 years old. And this is in 1994. He lost the heavyweight title to Muhammad Ali in 1974, 20 years later. And he goes in there and is losing every single round to Michael Moore, who had just beaten Holyfield. So he was the lineal champion. He was the real deal. No pun intended, real deal with Holyfield. And he knocks Michael Moore out in the 10th round. I think it was in the 10th round or the 11th round, whatever it was. Becomes the oldest heavyweight champion ever at 44 years old, 20 years after he had lost the title to Muhammad Ali, doing the unthinkable, executing his prediction that he will again become the heavyweight champion of the world. Nobody thought he was serious. Nobody believed him, and he actually ended up doing it. And on top of that, he goes and makes this grill, which makes him over $100 million. This guy's life is a movie, George Foreman. It's ridiculous. George Foreman has one of the most incredible stories in the history of boxing, and I don't see a feat like that being done again, where a guy was the heavyweight champion for 20 years earlier, and then comes back 20 years later and becomes heavyweight champion again. George Foreman's life is a movie, and they should make a movie about him. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe.